You're opening this business with a dream, right? You're opening this business with a passion. You need to know who's working for you. If you're going to have a hiring manager, you need to know that manager. You need to know them personally. You need to know what's going on in their life, how they feel, all of these things. You can hire anybody off the street, anybody, but you do not know how that person is going to treat your business.
Welcome to the Coffee Experts Club, where we discuss all of the insights, expertise, and drama that goes into making your passion your profession. Our hosts, Aaron, Ben, and Drew, are three coffee experts who have taken their coffee experience and turned it into true expertise. They have consulted with major coffee brands throughout the United States and beyond, providing operations expertise and growth strategy for drive-through openings, multiple locations, and everything in between. So brew yourself a cup and hang out a bit with the Coffee Experts Club.
Maybe give us some backstory, Phoenix. Where'd you start with roasters? How'd you start with roasters? Like, where, we've talked about a lot how both these guys started as just young dudes coming up through the ranks as baristas and then kind of earn their ranks, earn their space at roasters. It'd be good for us to hear just a little origin story for the mighty Phoenix.
I actually love this story. I've told it a million times. I was actually working at Olive Garden as a server, and I had known Wes from all of the different YouTube videos, just kind of explaining like what they were doing, what kind of movement they were making. And I was just like obsessed with the idea of working at roasters. I'd actually applied probably 5 times before all of that, just kind of getting into knowing what roasters was. And one day I was just working and Wes came and sat in my section. And so I just was fangirling. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is actually happening. I think he was there with Isaac. I don't know if you guys remember him a long time ago, but they were just sitting down having some lunch, I think talking just strategy and things like that. And I walked up to the table completely red in the face. And I was just like, I'm so like stoked that you're here. I can't believe it. And I was just, doing the job, serving them, getting everything I possibly could. And the next day, Jarrett came in and dropped off 2 gift cards for me and a bunch of stickers. And so I was just like dumbfounded that could have possibly happened. I sent in a resume and had a interview with Jarrett at the Edison shop. And everybody that was walking in, I was familiar with. I knew who they were. So I was saying hi every 5 seconds. And Jarrett was just like, you just know everybody in the city. And I'd been there so long that I knew quite a few people. So anyways, the interview went really well. And then I got started at G-Way, which couldn't have been a better place for me. I actually had argued to see if I could go to Columbia Center because I'd known all of the baristas there for so long. But so glad I got started at G-Way and then, kind of dove underneath Drew's wing and soaked up everything he possibly could have said. And we became pretty close and then just keep moving up from there and started making all the relationships I could with all of the people that were around me and that had any advice or any kind of wisdom that I could soak up, and kept doing that and then worked my way through the ranks and managed G-Way for as long as I could. And now we're here.
Bada bing, bada bing.
Yep.
So I remember when you first walked into Edison, and I think maybe I was watching the interview or something. And after the interview, Jared goes, "That's the next and better you, Drew. Watch out, man." And I was like, "I better teach her everything I know." So it kind of just went off of that relationship. And we trained at Edison for a good while.
I was going to say, I totally forgot. We trained at Edison. We were there like early in the morning. We actually had a ton of fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So G-Way was kind of a massive store compared to what you trained at Edison. There can be a lot of fear and hesitation when it comes to, these young baristas coming up and working with big teams and lots of customers and loud music and, all the things that go into just being trained, memorizing all the drinks and names and the flow. What was it that kind of kept you motivated to push past all those things?
Oh my gosh, there were so many different reasons. It was one, the customers, absolutely like the best customer base that I ever could have asked for. 2, the team that I'd started working with was just so inviting. They were knowledgeable. They cared about the business as much as I cared about the business. Everyone was in agreement with, hey, this is something that we kind of treat as our own. It wasn't one of those things where you just go in and, yeah, I'm working for a paycheck. It was everyone's love was invested in what they were doing every single day. And so just getting to see that almost like right off the bat, getting to witness that was the normal, everyday practice of how people worked there it really just sucked me in instantly. It wasn't something I could even fight. It was just, I knew that I belonged there. I just wanted to learn everything I possibly could and, just immerse myself in the same thing that got to see these other baristas do. They were practicing like a well-oiled machine that, not even thinking about what they were doing. It was just producing and they were just doing it and having a great time while they were doing it.
Had
You,
you ever done coffee before? Was coffee
No.
roasters, or was that your first entrance in? So you came out of Olive Garden fresh, like never done coffee before, but it was something that
Yep.
you had a passion about, something that you were a user and experiencer, and then you just like throw me in the ranks.
Yep. I drink coffee every single day. I went to roasters every single day. I couldn't even tell you the amount of money I spent there. But I don't know. It was I had no idea. Like I had no idea when I was going in that coffee was going to be something that I was passionate about. And even last night I was talking to my boyfriend about, my wants and needs and what I want to do in my life. And the only thing I can think of is coffee. I don't even know what else. It's just stuck with you so quickly. And everything, it's not even just, hey, it's coffee. It's what goes into all of it. The crafting, the care, the love, the relationships, all of that.
one of my favorite quotes, I actually like to quote you all the time is, I don't remember exactly what we were doing. I think we were on bar and we were talking about G-Way and roasters and the different stores. And you said, we're a coffee shop, but we're not a coffee shop because of all the dynamics that go into training all these young people. We're a people development center, basically.
Indeed.
That's,
And I think that stays true now.
and I would say that held, I think that held the most truth at Richland. I've rode 68 some too, but that shop was always known for, like, you go in and you're just going to have a ball, like as a
Mhm.
customer, like you go in and you're going to feel good. Somebody's going to yell hi at you from like the back room somewhere. Like it was always just, we going like, man, I'm going to have a good time here no matter what.
It was always like a massive party and it was like an organized party. It was like you had so much chaos going on, but it was so much order at the same time. So it was a beautiful thing. You go in being who you thought you were and then you come out being who you actually are. So that was always magnificent to watch those baristas go in there all shy and timid. And then 2 months later, they got their tattoos out and they have, all these new friends and they're going out to go do all these fun things they never thought they would. So it was amazing.
It's hard to hide and be sneaky when you get, cheered on when you get on bar.
Hey, what's
Yeah.
up, afternoon crew?
I actually have a funny memory. We had a shift change coming. And Drew, I think you remember this actually, but I don't even know why it happened, but we all kind of just randomly lined up and just started clapping. And then all of the people in the lobby just started clapping for this next round of drinks that were coming out. And like the whole thing was just in a roar of just, celebrating the next shift that was coming on. And it was amazing. It was so, so cool.
That was funny. I do remember that. It was a fun thing
Yeah.
to be part of. Spontaneous
Mhm.
clapping for the next team.
Yeah. Just to get them started.
I think it's cool too. I mean, I feel like obviously I'm from down here in Southern Oregon. I live in Southern Oregon, knowing that that's where roasters came out of initially, with Wes's departure from Dutch and going out on his own to do the roasters, and how much of a battle that was, a legal battle, whole 9 yards for him to be able to birth this beautiful thing
Right.
with roasters. But I think that obviously all of us are pretty familiar with Dutch culture that can sometimes feel pretty forced. I mean, like it's a force, like it feels like a fake energy, like it's being projected. And I always really appreciated about roasters just the sincere energy it felt like coming from the people who seemed like they really enjoyed what they were doing, enjoyed the people they worked with, weren't trying to put on something to put a drink out the window, as much as enjoying genuinely the people they worked with, enjoying genuinely the customers they were serving, and really living by the ethos that the whole roasters crew really held to, based in service.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you have baristas that are coming off bar and they still want to be there and they want to hang out and they want to just check in and see, oh, are you set up for the next thing? Like, did I get you this? Not trying to rush out the door. They want to stick around and make sure everything was taken care of well and everyone feels good. And, you know, that's something to praise and think about, where you have people that, yeah, they show up to work and what have you, but they're out the door as soon as they clocked out. It was just a whole different it was just a whole different lifestyle, honestly, like a different way of working, a different way of, making your paychecks and paying off your bills and things like that. But not only that, you just had so much more going on besides, hey, I'm making some money to pay bills. It was much more than that.
And we always said the people on window that were the ones who excelled the most. And I remember
Because they
working.
didn't want to be there at
Yeah,
first. It was too intimidating.
we had a moment where I was working on bar. I think I was with you and somebody's sitting in the window, just chilling, kind of calm. But it was absolute chaos behind the bar. And I heard the customer say, how is this? How are you so relaxed when there's just absolute chaos behind you? And the barista's like, oh, this is, it is, this is what it is. And so it wasn't always translated as chaos out the window, which is something that I
Right.
thought was unique too.
Yeah, I was gonna say my ethos at the shop I was at was always like if you can make it so the customer when they're leaving they're laughing, even if like you mess up their drinks, they're coming back. Like if you can
Oh,
like
totally.
goof off, tell a joke, tell a personal joke, an inside joke with a customer, and they're like as they're driving away, like they're gonna be back. They're definitely gonna be back tomorrow. That's how I feel it was throughout the entire company. Like every barista sort of that culture was like unspoken. It wasn't a written culture, but it was like everybody got like, yeah, if customers have fun while they're sitting in the drive-through, they're gonna come back.
Well, and not only that, but I think that was also so easy because we had some of the funniest people in the Tri-Cities working with us. Like there'd be people that would walk in a room and say something just off the top of their head and you're dying laughing. Like I had people tell me that they'd come back to the lobby to hear me sing or that they'd come to the drive-through because Zach was just hilarious or,
Mhm.
just all of these different things, all of these different reasons why they would just keep showing up. And it never had to do with just my cup of coffee. It was always because, hey, this personality exists or I have really loved this person or, just whatever it was. It was very special.
How do you guys feel like that wraps in? So, like obviously Drew has got some new pilots he's doing for a couple of different clients. Actually, we've got two folks that Drew's going to be going to their town and helping them open their first coffee drive soon. And so like big things there, pretty exciting things there. We have, one in Utah and one up in Montana and some different things that are happening. Like we have our whole checklist, we have the smart sheet that we work from on how we're opening grand openings, and there's all the different moving pieces and, your construction and your lease and then working through like all the details from the admin side of things of all the setup behind the scenes, then all the hiring and all the training and bringing people, bringing in all your machines and then all the stock and then the grand opening day. And our smart sheet like systemizes everything, but I don't feel like what we're talking about right here is something that you can systemize. Like it doesn't feel like something where you're like, hey, so where does that hit the line item? How are we how are we infusing that into our coffee stand? But I do feel like what we're talking about right here to me is the magic, right? Like I think anybody can sling a cup of coffee. Anybody can learn how to pull a shot. Anybody can, get the mode down. But I feel like the things that we're talking about right now is what makes coffee electric. It's what makes coffee magic. Somebody that's starting at their own coffee stand, somebody that's trying to get their company up and off the ground. What would you guys say it is that fuels that magic? Like how can you infuse that electricity into your culture? What would you guys give suggestions wise?
I actually think about this a lot. I wondered what it was that would make this all exist. And I think honestly, it's the person you're opening this business with a dream, right? You're opening this business with a passion. You need to know who's working for you. If you're going to have a hiring manager, you need to know that manager. You need to know them personally. You need to know what's going on in their life, how they feel, all of these things. You can hire anybody off the street,
Mhm.
anybody, but you do not know how that person's going to treat your business. Not necessarily saying that you need to hire people that are only going to treat your business like theirs, but that's gold right there. If you can hire someone that cares about what you're doing and is passionate about what you're doing as much as you are, that's what you're looking for. And I think that's just one of the most important aspects of how you're going to get that return to your customers. How are you going to make your company speak out to the community, right? If you just want to give them a cup of coffee, that's one thing, hire whoever, but if you want to make sure that they're getting the service that you would provide every single time, you need to have people that have like minds like you do.
Yeah, I would say too, in the early days, we got extremely lucky and randomly got lucky in finding those people. But the more like super authentic people that we found, the more that we were able to go, oh, you're the kind of person that we want to hire. And Drew got really good at finding the
Mhm.
authentic people, the people who are authentically funny or authentically caring. They weren't just like in an interview trying to put on a show. So if you can get like, I think a few of those keystone players early on as a new owner operator, then you can start to model, okay, this is actually, you're the type of personality ish that I want to hire. You are authentic with my customers. You're funny because you're just a funny person. Or you're caring just because you're a caring person, not because you put on the uniform and you're supposed to be caring now. And when you leave, you're just a complete what? The
Some,
authenticity is huge, and that resonates to customers a lot.
something
Is that
special I noticed that Drew did. Drew made up these sheets of questions. One would tell you how the person, how they think, but two, it would give you a really good window into their personality as well. Not just those random questions like, you know, what do you think you're going to be doing in 5 years? It was more like in depth. And so I feel like that was a really good addition into the interview process of having those kinds of questions.
I just know I get my most creative when I'm put back on my heels by a question. So give that to people the same. I think, a lot of the magic moment at a coffee shop for the success of the business is at the window between the barista and the customer. Then that customer has, one experience or two a day with your business. And so you really want it to be magical. But the inverse is true for the barista. They have 1,000 experiences a day with customers. And so you kind of have to consider that when you're hiring people, what's going to keep them fueled throughout the day. And the ticket is authenticity. And I think the magic moment for the baristas can be constant if they're with authentic people who kind of feel that within them. I just found meeting people as real people, not as interviewer and interviewee, because that puts them in a box to behave like an interviewee and me to be an interviewer. And so just being real with people and finding that authentic place inside of you that can appreciate what they have to, even if they are not a fit for your business, you give them the 15 minutes and try to have a good conversation with them. And, that's just reps. That's just reps for finding authentic people.
So Drew, I mean, you've done literally hundreds of interviews and have interviewed in a lot of different styles. I mean, even just with the Collab team, I feel like you've done dozens and dozens of interviews with people for all kinds of things outside of coffee now. You know what I mean? Like so many random job descriptions we've thrown at Drew Moody and had him do interviews just because he had all those years of coffee interviews and interviewing people at large. As we're talking about interviewing, do you guys have a feeling on one-to-one interviews or one-to-many group interviews? Like, how do you guys feel like is the best way to identify magic? Do you feel like the magic can be identified better when it's a group interview? Because then you can kind of see how they're interacting with other people in a live setting. Or do you feel like one-to-one is better? How do you guys do interviews for those? I know we're a lot of the new coffee shop kickoffs that Drew's going to be part of is finding the crew. So just maybe some feedback on how you guys find the crew.
I really liked having the one-on-one interviews, but with several people waiting. The reason why I like that so much is because you're sitting down with these people, you're having that individual conversation, getting to know them individually. I mean, it sounds a little odd, but you get to compare them to the next person that you're sitting down with, right? Instead of having one interview and then a week later, you're having another one with a potential candidate to work with you, getting to sit down and having those individual one by one interviews, but back to back, I found was really beneficial.
I don't think I was ever a huge fan of group interviews, just because you can. Coffee industry isn't about just being like the loud, outgoing person, which is great. And I would tell people, it's great if you're loud, outgoing, but if that's not you and you try and fake it, I don't want you on my team because the customer's not going to like that. So those group interviews tend to lean towards like who's the loudest and most outgoing. They're going to get attention. Whereas maybe one of the quieter, but the most caring, authentically caring, good potential employee just gets railroaded and they never gets a chance to have that conversation with you. And 9 times out of 10, that really, caring, slightly quieter person is going to be awesome. That you just, once they get on a team, you just need to break their shell a little bit, get them out and get them a little bit, more competent at the window. And they're a fantastic, not only employee with the customer, but just even employee your company, because you can't forget, like at some point you want these people mopping the floors too. Like, they can't just talk to people the whole time. So they may be great talking to the customer, but if they can't mop the floor, then that's another issue. So it's yeah, I don't think I've really been a fan of the group interview.
Yeah, I think group interviews, I mean, it depends, obviously, like you said, on the personality type for who you're interviewing and what you're looking for and the methods that you employ during the group interviews. Like I know I mentioned one about the team building and, you find leaders by having certain exercises. But I'm also an advocate for one-on-one interviews. They're a little bit more intimate, and that's what the experience with the customer is going to be, is one-to-one. Of course, you pull in your barista sometimes and you guys banter a little bit. And something that I really enjoyed doing was having an interview with, like at Phoenix, when you were the manager and I was the regional and you had interviews, I'd love to sit down with you because the banter between, you and I, or, whoever else is there, it makes the person a little bit more comfortable because there's not so much pressure for them to just be, constantly performing and have to answer everything immediately. They have time to kind of process the social situation between, the interviewers. And of course, the more comfortable you are with whoever you're sitting with next to you, that's going to make the barista more comfortable, or the future barista more comfortable too.
I totally agree.
I know Roasters was always really big at hiring from within. I feel like every manager that I knew of at least came from within Roasters. Nobody that I can think of off the top of my head was hired as a manager out of some other outfit to come into Roasters to be a manager. What is your guys' advice when it comes to growing managers, growing a culture of managers, giving people the opportunity to level up? And then maybe for some of our folks that are like, well, shoot, man, like this is my first one. Like, do you have any advice for me on hiring manager? Maybe being the person in that seat for a set of time so that people can see me, model me for the sake of replicating me. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
So I have another memory that kind of goes into with that. I had a conversation with someone that I had promoted to be a lead. And he sat down with me one time and he said, everybody told you that it was a no, that it should have been a no-go for me. But for some reason, you decided that I had what it took to get this done. What was it? And I said, there was not one thing in general that gave me that idea that, you're going to be able to do it, except for the fact that I see potential in anybody that wants to put forth their best foot, right? If you're striving to be the best that you can be, you have what it takes to become a leader. So basically, I think what you look for to have a leader is someone that is driven, someone that is dependable, someone that knows what they're doing inside and out and is passionate about what they're doing. If you have those four things, obviously there's more that goes into it, but if you have those four things, you can breathe life into someone and keep that care and, be that shoulder for them to lean on whenever they need it and watch them bloom in my opinion.
I will say operationally, from like my side of it at the company, there were so many times where I was like, why don't we just hire a manager from without? Like we just lost a manager, maybe out of the blue. And we're like, okay, who's gonna do it? We don't have any. It's like we could just let's just put a job listing on Craigslist or something. Like it would save us so much time and work. So hiring out is effective in that it finds you talent quickly, but the thing that you immediately sacrifice is culture. And that's why we refuse to hire out. It was always you grow from within because yeah, it might take more work to, you might have to have a regional step in to manage a shop while there's no manager there for a certain amount of period of time until you can raise somebody up. But it keeps your culture intact. And I would say it helps your culture even more because that person's like, oh my gosh, I've been here for a couple of years. Now it's my shop to be manager. And that appreciation grows and that level of like their owning of the company or their location grows so much more. And that you can't hire out for. Like you can find the best talent for a management position, but it's always going to be culturally worse for you than if you were to grow somebody up through the years in your company and promote them within. After seeing that over the years, I would always say hire from without as rarely as possible. And hopefully you never have to do that. But always try and hire within. Always going to help your company.
And obviously, like Phoenix was saying, you're looking for the standouts. Not everybody can do it. And there were plenty of people that we promoted at Roasters and had to demote at Roasters. You know what I mean? I think that's part of the culture, right? But I think if you can make part of the culture that it's okay to be promoted and to be demoted, I think that was one of the loudest call outs within Roasters culture in my mind was that people would actually be promoted to a position, stay there for a window of time and be demoted and still thrive within Roasters culture. I think that has something to say with people that are like, hey, we understand that, man, we're going to try some things. We're going to take some risks. We'll get out there and maybe it'll work and maybe it won't work, but I'm going to at least give this a shot. And I think that, there are people that are still within Roasters to this day. And now BlackRock, where that we promoted up, ran big stores, were demoted down and are still there years later. I think that's a big testimony to the culture and the heartbeat behind what Roasters was.
I
So
think, like you said, Ben, some of the best leaders are the quieter ones because they're not so. And I mean, you can teach anybody to run the logistics of a store. It's simple processes, but running people, you have to kind of have a quiet internal climate to not be so reactive.
Ooh, I learned a lot about that with Drew, actually. I remember when I was first getting started, anything that went not my way, I was just like, it's the end of the world, whatever. And after him and I sitting down and having those conversations and kind of hey, why is this setting you off? Why is it making you feel this kind of way? I finally got to that point where I was like, okay, baseline. Like we don't have to move. It's not the end of the world, what have you. And yeah, I think you're totally right about that.
How would you say, Phoenix, it was learning how to navigate the chaos? Because I mean, when Drew managed that shop, it was like, I remember it was utter chaos. Like we were kind of
No offense, Drew. No
it
offense. I
just
get it. Go
Oh,
ahead.
I remember. I was there.
we were like flaming up a bit, and took it from like just a complete sandbox where people were just like, we can do whatever we want, whenever we want, handing it off to you. How was it that you learned, especially having no management experience, like, okay, this is what I should do at this point, or if an employee does this, I should discipline them this way, or I should order this that way. Was it just learning as you go and trial and error?
It had a lot to do with learning the people that were working for me, right? Learning what certain things made them feel certain ways. If I were to say go up to Zach and he did something wrong, a simple conversation with Zach is going to make him feel like, oh, hey, this is where I messed up. Whereas if I went up to someone like a different employee, if I went up to a different employee and they didn't learn with just sitting face to face, it was more like tap on the wrist, like, hey, kind of a situation. You had to learn how to read those people and what was really going to speak to them and why it was going to speak to them. So I think learning personalities, learning how to talk to different interpretations, how they interpret what you're saying was very important. I've always, I know it's kind of funny to stand up and say, like, you've always been a leader, but I've always been someone that had people ask her for questions, ask them, for wisdom, advice, all of that kind of stuff. And I think that really helped me as well, kind of navigating into what it was because we all knew G-Way to be that crazy loud, you know, over the top place. And we still got to be that with with a little bit more direction.
That makes total sense.
I think too, I mean, like you said, Phoenix, a lot of times it's identifying the diamond in the rough. You always have those traits. You were just looking for an opportunity to be put in the right position to be able to exercise those traits, is what that said to me. And I don't think I've ever told you this, Drew, but when Drew first started making his like standout and like moving forward into this area of given opportunities to manage, I think it was first Edison and then the bump up into Richland and then the bump up into regional was that all employees party. Ben, that was the one that you had to referee out like underage drinkers, right? Same one. But Drew, I don't know if you remember this, but Reed was there, I think with this football or with this frisbee or something like that. And it got thrown into this like weed thicket and he couldn't get to it. And you went over there and kind of managed your way through to get the kid's ball or get the kid's frisbee. Do you remember that occasion, Drew? How,
Sounds
Yeah.
like Drew.
was it football or was it at frisbee? Do you remember?
It was football.
Yeah. So you managed your way back there. And I remember Shannon pulled me aside after that all employees meeting and it was just like, that guy, Drew, he's a leader. And nobody was going to help my kid. My kid needed his ball out of the thicket. He couldn't get it out of there. Drew took time, went over there, got it, like, got himself all couch scratched up to get my kid's ball out of there. That kid's going to be a leader here. You watch. And I'm just like, something so simple as like following some kid's ball into some, like thorny thorn bush or whatever. But like, it's that when given the opportunity, he authentically rose to be a person that we're like, that guy's a leader. That's guy's somebody that we want leading people. That guy's an example when nobody else is watching. Like that's the kind of leaders that we want. I think that there was a true authenticity in a lot of the leaders within Roasters because I think that you guys got really good at finding the Phoenix who maybe had no management experience, who had not much coffee experience, throw her into the middle of something, see how she swims, and then recognizing, no, she's got talent. She's the diamond in the rough. Let's put her into this slot that maybe most people wouldn't necessarily say, yes, she's an ideal candidate for that position. Let's give her a shot and see how she does. And I know Phoenix really flourished in that. So kudos to you for that, for rising.
Thank you.
We-
Again, it goes back to, them seeing that in you, being able to, you have that person come up to you and say, well, why did you think that I could do this? It's because they have that ability to be able to see, hey, this person's going to be able to do it. They're going to sink or they're going to swim, but let's give them a shot.
That's I was to say we very much that was another sort of unwritten part of our culture was like and let's give it a shot culture. Like we were always celebrated the underdog, always celebrated the non college grad. It was like the bootstraps kind of culture of like, well, let's see what happens. We'll give it a shot, and if it doesn't work, we'll try something else, and we'll keep trying, and we'll keep trying, and we'll keep trying. And that sort of culture when it gets into your employees, if your employees look up to the management. The manager says, let's give it a shot. The employees go, well, heck, yeah, I'll give it a shot. Sure. Why not? Let's see what happens. And that's how you do find a lot of those leaders who may not even think that they'd be a good leader. or be a good manager, but like, all right, if you're willing to give it a shot, I'll give it a shot. And everybody's then trying towards the same goal. And all of a sudden you've got, magical little leader out on your hands where you're like, wow, I never, you would be a manager at the shop.
It's good. That's good stuff. Alrighty. So as we kind of wind things up a little bit, Phoenix, any wisdom you want to leave with us as far as like from your years of doing coffee, from your years of leading people, from your years of, starting new things, trying new endeavors, dreams that you have in your heart still probably for things to come. Any last words of wisdom you want to give us?
I think the last thing that I would just put out there is the thought of if you have an idea, make sure that you hatch that idea. I think the weight of an idea that could be big is very scary and it's heavy to carry. But if it's something that you're passionate about and something that you want to see through, to take that light and make sure that it keeps going, make sure it keeps growing and make it happen. And I think that's kind of where I'm at in general. Just if you see that and you want it, make it happen.
Stuff. Phoenix, thank you so much for your time today, guys. Thank you everybody that tuned in today for Coffee Experts. And we'll see you guys on the flip side next week.
Thanks so much for joining us today. For those of you who are looking to become a coffee expert yourself, we offer an incredible, thorough training online for opening your first coffee drive-thru at www.myfirstdrivethru.coffee.